welcome to Insala's webinar called 7 Things I Wish I'd Known Before Starting a Mentoring Program. Now, this webinar is the 5th in a series of complimentary webinars where we're going to be exploring with you the many ways that mentoring can facilitate your talent development strategy. And to those of you who were at any of our previous webinars, and looking at the audience, there's quite a few of you here. Thank you so much for joining us again, and we hope you enjoyed today's discussion. I'm Crystal Ding, and I'm bringing this webinar to you along with my colleague Judy Corner, who is mentoring subject matter expert at Insala. And over the past 20 years, Judy's designed and delivered mentoring workshops, mentor and mentee training, and mentoring programs, which she's successfully implemented at a wide range of organizations. Today, Judy is going to share with you 7 recommendations that we at Insala feel will maximize the return on investment for any mentoring program that you run at your organization. And today, we'll have a half-hour presentation, followed by another half-hour of questions and answers. And this is really an opportunity for you to ask Judy any questions you might have about mentoring. Before we move on, I just want to explain to you some of the guidelines for today's webinar. First, you'll be muted during the presentation for optimal audio performance. And during the presentation, we'll be inviting you to participate in a number of polls, which will pop up on your screen when the time comes. So we encourage you to ask questions throughout the discussion as well. And to ask questions, you can just type them in the questions window at the lower portion of the GoToMeeting toolbar. After today's presentation, you'll also receive a recording of the webinar, which will include both the audio and the slides. Now, with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Judy, who's going to tell you a little more about how to make your mentoring program as successful as it can be. Judy?
Thank you, Crystal. And I'd like to say welcome back to those of you who have joined us before, and a new welcome to those of you where this is your first time. Today we're going to talk about those 7 things I wish I knew before starting a mentoring program, and these are actually going to come from real client experiences and things that happened to them that they wish they'd known about before they started their mentoring program. What we also want to do is to talk to you about a new webinar series that we have coming up, and around the topic of employee career development, because we know that this is becoming a very hot topic within organizations and one that is of great importance. And we're going to be discussing more about that at the very end of today's webinar. Now, looking at future mentoring webinars, there will be one on March 23rd, and we want you to look and be looking for the email that will come through announcing that webinar and the title. And for those of you to look at any of our previous webinars or our upcoming webinars, we invite you to come to our website that is totally devoted to mentoring at mentoringtalent.com/webinars. We always want to get feedback from our participants as to the types of things you would like to have covered in future webinars. So at this point in time, I'd like to turn it back to Crystal. And Crystal, would you please let us know what people would like to have in the future?
Thanks very much, Judy. At this point, I want to launch a poll, and the question is the following. What topics would you like to learn about in future webinars? Again, as Judy said, we're looking to make sure we provide you with the most relevant topics that align with your 2011 talent strategy. So do you want to hear more about building a business case for mentoring as a talent strategy, managing mentoring programs within a large organization, best practices in mentoring for high potential employees, differences between coaching and mentoring, or corporate mentoring within the financial services industry as a niche topic? Okay, and the responses are rolling in. I'm just going to wait a few more seconds, and I'm going to close the poll now and share the results with you. Well, it looks like we have 2 leaders here, best practices mentoring for high potential employees and managing mentoring programs within a large organization. And it looks like best practices in mentoring for high potential employees is the most popular one. And that comes as no surprise, Judy, as we do know that in 2011, leadership development is one of the organization's most critical objectives for this year. Back to you.
Yes, thank you, Crystal, and you're absolutely correct. We know that these types of things are very important as organizations are making sure that they're going to concentrate on those high potentials and their leadership development going forward. So thank you very much. Now, one of the things that we have also done, as well as our mentoringtalent.com website, we also ran a mentoring survey report last year, and we want to let you know how you can get a copy of this. The people that should be reading this report are business leaders and HR professionals that are interested in implementing mentoring, because you're going to learn how mentoring is commonly used in organizations today, people's perceptions of program challenges and successes, and then the anticipated challenges, whether someone has a mentoring program going on now and they're anticipating upcoming challenges in these programs or adding different focuses to their program, or those individuals who have not yet implemented a mentoring program but are anticipating what those challenges are going to be in upcoming programs. So how do you get a free copy? All you have to do is complete a questionnaire at the end of this webinar, and we will be glad to forward a copy of that mentoring survey report to you. What I'd like to do now is to tell you a little bit about Insala. We are a leading global provider of solutions for mentoring, career development, and career transition. We work with organizations of all types and sizes, and we have a software-as-a-service technology and an array of consulting services that we offer. But most of all, we customize these solutions to your organizations and your needs that empower you to help you meet today's workforce challenges and align all your talent development initiatives with your business goals. Again, we invite you to go to our website at insala.com or our mentoring website at mentoringtalent.com. A couple of things that we feel make us kind of unique is, first of all, in the mentoring space, we have a proven methodology that's based on 20 years of mentoring experience. We've worked with all types of organizations, both on a local, a national, or an international focus. And we work with small, medium, and large organizations. In doing that, the 20-year methodology, we know it's been practiced, it's been used, it's been applied, so we know that it works. And we continue to update our methodology to meet your needs. Now, combining all of that with 15 years of implementing talent development software solutions, we feel that we can provide a total solution for your organization. We also have subject matter experts that are continually doing research work on mentoring and other talent development software solutions so that we can provide our clients and you as a participant the most updated information, because we feel that we provide sustainable and scalable products for, again, providing you with services that meet your talent development needs. Now, what you're going to learn today, we're going to talk those 7 recommendations for successful mentoring program implementation. And as I mentioned before, this is going to come from real client situations, and we're going to talk to you about the problems that they had, the things they wish they'd known before they implemented their program, and our recommendations on how we help them and trying to help you from falling into those same problems. And then we're also going to talk about how Insala can help you generate a maximum return on investment on either your existing program or any future program that you might want to implement. So at this time, I'm going to turn it back to Crystal. And Crystal, would you run our next poll?
Thank you, Judy. This next poll asks, what do you think is the biggest challenge in implementing a mentoring program? And the reason why we're asking this question is because we think that all of you coming in the audience today are looking to either improve an existing aspect of your current program, or you're looking to avoid pitfalls and define best practices before entering into your new program. And so we want to know which of these following options is the most challenging for you, either what you've experienced before or from what you anticipate to be the most challenging. And just going to wait a few more seconds, and I'm going to close the poll at this point and share the results with you. And it looks like there's two overwhelming responses that are the most popular. The first is measuring program success and tying the program's goals to business goals. And the next one is really creating that mentoring program plan that is effective throughout the program. And those two really tie hand in hand together. And at this point, I'm going to bring it back to Judy.
Absolutely. And those are the kind of things that you're going to see as we move forward throughout this webinar, because those usually are the most common things that come up. How do I, tie this to business objectives and measure results, and how do I get that plan? And in fact, that actually ties right into our first client problem. They were under pressure just to get the mentoring program started, just get it implemented, get it going. But they didn't have a plan. They weren't ready for some of the problems that came up, and what happened was eventually they had to scrap the program. So our recommendation to them and to you is make sure you have got a well-defined plan before you begin implementing your program. Now, we have a mentoring readiness workshop that we offer to organizations, and what this readiness workshop enables you to do is to work with our experienced subject matter experts to make sure that you have got all the critical elements identified and included in your program plan. You want to make sure that you have got a good strategic rollout plan before you decide to implement your mentoring initiative. And this will allow you to create realistic and achievable plans that will help you to implement that program and be able to tie those to your business goals. One of the things we hear is, how do we measure? And we want to make sure that you can measure. We believe that mentoring is a business strategy, and you should be able to tie it to your goals. One of the things that we also hear is that organizations want to roll out their mentoring program, and they will do it without a strategic plan because they'll say, we're just going to do a pilot. Well, mentoring is a little different than some initiatives you may roll out. And if you're rolling out just, quote, a pilot around mentoring, you still want to make sure that you roll this pilot out at the very best that it can be. So even though it's only a pilot and you may not be ready to roll out to the entire organization, you still want to make sure that you have got a good, solid, strategic plan in what you're going to be doing. Now, the next client situation that we came across was the client felt the mentoring program was indeed successful, but they couldn't prove it. Then what happened when budget cuts came, they lost their funding and their support. Our recommendation to them and to you was make sure you define specific and relevant measurements for your program success. This is part of what we talked about previously. Your business objectives, have a good plan, and have your measurements. The readiness workshop will also help you to establish those success measurements. Our experienced mentoring experts walk you through a step-by-step process to get you to those very specific business goals and measurements. It helps you to create that powerful business case for your mentoring program as you move forward. Therefore, you know that you're going to be able to long-term measure and demonstrate the success of your program. That way you know you're going to get maximum funding and support, and it's going to be backed because you have put a serious business case in front of your senior management. Our next client situation was, in this client, their senior management pressured all of their VPs to become mentors because they assumed that all of these VPs had the appropriate skills excuse me, and experiences to be good mentors. But it didn't work. And in the end, it was the mentees who suffered the most. Our recommendation, don't just let anyone participate in your program. Make sure that you have got a good application process. And our application process enables you to assess whether an individual has the skills and competencies to be a good mentor. That way you can target your mentoring program to your best possible audience and build a highly committed participant pool for effective matching and pairing. Therefore, what you're going to be able to do is prevent unsuitable participants from partaking in the program and not just unsuitable, but you're going to make sure these individuals have the right skills and the right level of commitment. So from a long-term standpoint, you know that you're going to be able to ensure good mentor and mentee satisfaction, not only in the program, but in the mentoring partnership as it moves forward. The next situation that we came across was similar to our previous one, but in this situation, the mentoring program, they required individuals to be a part of this mentoring program. It was mandatory for certain individuals. And so what happened was, because it was mandatory and they were requiring individuals to be mentors or mentees, what happened was many times the mentors and mentees failed to show up for meetings or complete assignments. As human beings, unfortunately, one of the things that we do is, if you require us or make us do something that we really don't want to do, we'll come up with excuses or reasons or all kinds of things as to why we don't want to do it, why we can't do it, or whatever. So we recommend that you make sure that your program participation is voluntary. Through our application process that we offer, we make sure that you've got an efficient and a simple way for individuals to apply as mentors or mentees using online application tools, and that ensures you've got a high quality and an engaged participant pool for your program. It's very important that your mentors and your mentees apply for those positions of mentor and mentee. The reason for that is, if someone applies for something, they've automatically put a commitment into that partnership. This is something they want to do, and that level of commitment is very, very important. Our next client situation was, in this case, the client assumed that all the individuals that were involved knew exactly what their roles were supposed to be, and they found out they were wrong. So what ended up happening is, those individuals that were a part of the mentoring program, they got frustrated. They didn't know what to do. They didn't understand what their roles were, and a lot of people just dropped out. What we recommend, don't skip on the training for your mentors, your mentees, and your managers and supervisors of those individuals that are mentors and mentees. Make sure you don't forget those managers. They're very, very important, and it's usually the one area that gets skipped. We provide mentoring training programs that enable you to offer informative and relevant training to your mentors, your mentees, and your managers to access engaging content and resources from our mentoring experts, and not only just the content, but experience. So our 20 years of experience in this field has given us real-life examples as to exactly the types of things that you may run into, and we can answer those questions in our training program. And we can provide that to you in various formats, whether that's online or on-site in workshops. But those formats, whichever they are, can fit your needs. Next, we worked with a client, and their problem was that they found out in their mid-program surveys, they learned that the mentees were learning what the mentors thought the mentees should learn, but not necessarily what the mentees themselves needed to learn. We recommend that you ensure that the organization and everyone involved with the mentoring program understands that this is a mentee-driven partnership. We talk about the fact that this should be a mentee-driven program, a mentee-driven partnership, but a mentor-guided. And so one of the things that we can do to help you is, through our training program, make sure that all the participants develop that clear understanding that it is mentee-driven and understanding of the mentor's role in a mentee-driven process. Therefore, mentees are able to drive their own development by creating a very specialized learning plan that is specific for their needs. And that learning plan is completed in a correct manner to make sure that it contains mentee-driven goals and objectives. Before a mentee goes into a mentoring partnership, they need to have very specific learning objectives created. You don't want them going into the mentoring partnership without a very clear focus of what it is they want to learn. It's not fair to the mentor to try and guess what it is that the mentee wants to learn. So our training programs help you with that clarity in doing that. Now, our last recommendation that we have based on the client program was we had an organization that had over 100 mentor-mentee pairs already. And they were in a situation where they were getting more and more of a demand for people that wanted to participate as mentors or mentees. They were using spreadsheets, and they were finding it very difficult to manage what they had already, much less if this process and this program was going to grow. Our recommendation was make sure that you implement a technology solution that's going to save you time and energy on program implementation. So the way that our software can help you do this and help you save that time and effort in your program for your program administrators is it allows you to manage large pools of program applications more efficiently. And of course, this leads to being able to generate a greater number of compatible matches. We hear from organizations all the time about the fact that it can take them weeks just to do the matching and pairing process. But with our application process and with our matching and pairing process, that can be done in a matter of minutes. It also, having a technology solution in place, allows the program administrator to monitor program activities and also the partnership activities and the process from one single platform. And then to be able to easily report on the effectiveness not only of the mentoring program, but also those mentoring partnerships. You went into this mentoring program and you want to know how it's doing, and you also want to be able to easily access those reports to make sure that it ties back to those business objectives and those measurements that you set out originally. Now, to give you kind of a pictorial idea of how that works, one of the things that happens in the beginning is there's an online application tool. So what happens is individuals go in, and as we said before, they apply to be a mentee. So we're going to know exactly the individuals that want mentoring, or they're going to apply as a mentor. This allows, through the application process, for the program administrator to really qualify and know that you've got good qualified mentors and you have mentees that have really gone to the effort to identify their needs. This then leads to a matching and pairing that is much more effective and much more easy and quicker. From this matching and pairing process, you're always going to be able to obtain online reports about the mentoring partnerships. And again, these reports, whether they're on the mentoring partnership and the program overall, allow you to know that you are tying this back to your business objectives. There is continual program feedback, which ties into the matching and pairing and the reports and so on. In addition to that, with that training, there is training for mentors and mentees, whether it's online or in workshops where we can provide this online in your technology. For the mentees, part of that learning is also a very specific learning plan process, which allows them to set goals and objectives and then be able to track them. And then, of course, online survey tools, which, again, allows the program administrator to always know the areas that need to be improved. The manager, there's online training for your manager, and also the manager can then be able to work with the mentee and the mentor to help support the mentoring partnership as it's moving forward. So how can we help you? Well, first of all, what we can do is to help you evaluate what a structured mentoring program can do for your organization using that readiness workshop, that strategic planning readiness workshop, that first step that you want to take. In addition to that, we can help you determine how your organization can roll out that mentoring initiative and make sure it's an effective talent development initiative. We can also help you implement successful mentoring programs using our solutions and make sure that you can achieve maximum program return on investment and be able to demonstrate results, which goes back to exactly one of the areas that was a concern, which is how are we going to measure results and how are we going to tie this to our business objectives. I want to remind you that, again, if you will complete the feedback questionnaire at the end of this webinar, we will be glad to send you the survey report. And also want to remind you about our new webinar series coming up around career development. And what I'd like to do right now is to turn this over to Crystal and find out some of those things that you might be interested in the area of career development. Crystal?
Thanks, Judy. This last poll that I'm going to launch right now is sort of gauging how important career development is to you, to your department, and your organization in 2011. Is it a high priority initiative? Is it a high priority topic? Or is it sort of on the back burner for this year? We want to really find out from you. So if you can please respond to the poll that actually best applies to you, and we can see what topics you might be interested in. If career development is an interesting topic, we'll go ahead and really focus on providing that content for you. Okay, just a few more seconds. I'm going to close this out right now. So that's some good round numbers. And I'm going to close that and share it. And it looks like 60% of you are interested in hearing more about career development based on the fact that it is an important initiative in 2011 and that you are actually involved one way or another in implementing. Once we take this from you, we'll be able to know more about the kind of content and the kind of knowledge that you might want to hear about. And back to you, Judy.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. And again, I can't say that the results are a surprise because, as Crystal said in the beginning of the webinar, we have been hearing more and more from our clients and from survey reports and research and everything that's done that, again, career development is becoming a major initiative in 2011. And again, we want to remind you at the completion of the questionnaire to fill out the questionnaire, or the completion of the webinar, to fill out the questionnaire so that we can send you the mentoring survey report. Now what I'd like to do is open it up, and Crystal, will you tell us about some of the questions that we're getting from our participants?
Thanks, Judy. I'm going to wait a few more seconds for the questions to roll on in. We're getting quite a few. Okay, the first question I think really ties back to something we mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. The question is, how exactly can we make sure that our mentoring program is realistic and achievable?
It all goes back to that readiness workshop in doing that. You need to make sure you've got a good plan. You need to make sure that the program is tied to business objectives, and you need to be able to measure results. Now, you never assume what your measurements are going to be until you know what your business objectives are. But the entire answer to know if it's realistic and achievable is going to be in that strategic plan that you're going to roll out. The readiness workshop that we take people through really walks through all the types of things that say, okay, if you're going to have a program, these are the kind of things that you need to think about. These are the kind of things that you need to have in place. Have you thought about what the advantages and challenges are going to be to having this type of program in place with the mentors, the mentees in the organization? And if you made sure that you've thought about how you're going to meet those challenges, these are the kind of things that you want to think about and make sure that you have thought about that will make sure you've got a realistic plan. And if you've done a good plan up front, then it's going to be achievable.
Great. Thanks, Judy. The next question from the audience I'm going to move on to is regarding selecting the proper mentors for your program. And the question is, how do you identify the competencies and skills for selecting the best mentors? And then once you do that, how do you assess mentors against those competencies once they're in the program?
A great question, and whoever brought it up, thank you, because we believe you should assess for those skills and competencies. There's a saying around mentoring that says the good news about mentoring is that it's thousands of years old. And the bad news about mentoring is that it's thousands of years old. And the reason we say that is there are many, many historical perceptions and misperceptions regarding what mentoring is, what the role of a mentor is, what the role of a mentee is. And so one of the things that you want to make sure of is that you don't fall into some of those misperceptions. As an example, one of the prime misperceptions around that is that if someone is at a certain high level in the organization, they would automatically be a good mentor. We're saying, nope, that's not true. Someone may be in a certain senior management skill or a certain senior management position. That may not mean that they have got the specific skills that it takes to be a good mentor. Do they have the oral communication skills? Do they have the listening skills? Do they have the coaching skills? Do they have the career development types of skills? These are all skills that are absolutely vital for a mentor. And then how do you assess to those skills? We believe that you very specifically need to identify what those skills are and then assess your mentors to those skills. We have a very specific role profile of what it takes to be a good mentor and also one that takes to be a good mentee. And we also have very specific assessments that help you to assess those skills. But the most important skills you want to look for are things like, as I mentioned before, oral communication, listening, interpersonal skills, coaching, career development. These are all very important skills that you want to make sure. It's not just a specific knowledge area, although that is important. A mentor needs to have a specific knowledge or area of expertise that they can pass on to the mentee, but they also have to have the oral communication skills and all the other skills we just mentioned so that they're able to pass that information on and to coach the mentee and help them develop. In addition to that, one of the things that we hear that is a misperception is individuals thinking that if somebody's good at what they do, that they would be a good mentor. And again, we're saying no. So just as I mentioned previously, someone may have an area of expertise and may be good at what they do, but again, they may not have the skills that it takes to actually mentor, guide, and coach another individual so that that other individual, the mentee, can develop those skills.
Thank you, Judy. I want to move on to a question about the manager and the manager's role in the mentoring program and mentoring partnership. And the question is really, how involved should the manager be in the mentoring process? I think this particular person sees the mentoring relationship as strictly confidential, which makes a lot of sense. And just want to tie into a question about the manager and how you see them being involved.
One of the reasons that I stressed several times that you need to make sure that you train your managers and supervisors is absolutely around this issue. One of the things that we found probably about, I would say 12, 13 years ago, I mean, we'd always had training programs for mentors and mentees, but what we were beginning to find was that managers were saying, we're not sure what our role is in this. We hear from the organization that we should support this mentoring program. We hear that we should support these mentoring partnerships, but we're not real sure what support looks like. So in doing this, we feel it's very, very important to make sure that you train your managers and supervisors so they do understand what their level of support is. What's their level of support that you want them to have in supporting that partnership between the mentor and the mentee? They need to understand that the partnership, that there are things that will be talked about in the partnership that need to be kept confidential. One of the prime things that's important about a mentoring partnership is that confidentiality. Managers need to be okay with that. They need to have all of their questions answered around that so that they don't feel like they're being left out. They need to understand where they can support that mentoring partnership. They need to understand where they can kind of interject their opinions and where they need to kind of stay hands-off. So the training for your managers around these mentoring partnerships need to include those types of things. Don't shortcut. that type of training. We were working with one organization, and actually they had a great comment. They were actually having problems getting the managers to attend some of the manager training that we were doing. And so anyway, we had this group that was in there, and one of the managers stood up in the actual training program and said, if you have any more problems getting managers to these training programs, you have them call me, because this is the best information we've gotten so far. Many times we work for the mentors, we work for the mentees, and we leave the managers out of the loop. Make sure you don't do that.
Okay, thanks, Judy. The next set of questions is really about matching and pairing. And the first question is, what are some criteria and factors used to effectively match and pair individuals in mentoring partnerships?
Much of this is going to be tied back to how you're going to measure your mentoring program. And keep in mind that, especially for large organizations, that you might have different divisions of your organization that maybe have different objectives and measurements for the mentoring initiative. It's not necessary that everybody has the very same objective and measurements. They just all need to tie into the overall organizational objectives and what they're doing. But in the process of doing that, we find that exactly what it is you're going to be doing is really tied to those objectives. And that matching and pairing criteria is going to depend on that. But I can give you some examples of those that are most common in doing that. One is around skills and competencies. So doing matching and pairing around a specific skill or competency that the mentee needs, and matching that with a mentor that can help them develop that skill or competency. That's one area. Another area that is a great criteria that we see most often is around a very specific career development focus. So if someone is interested in looking at finance, but I would say be specific. Don't just say finance. There's many different career opportunities within finance, so you want to be specific as to exactly what it is within finance they'd like to do. So it would be a matching and pairing based on a mentee that wanted to look at a specific job within a specific focus in the organization. That's another criteria that we see most often. Another criteria that we see is if the organization is global and individuals want to move to different parts of the organization, or they want to move to different areas and possibly overseas, different areas of the United States, whatever that might be. So it could be not just a department that they would like to know more about and move to, or a discipline they'd like to move to, but it may be that there's a different part of the country they'd like to move to. So those are probably three of the largest ones that we see. Those are used most often, that it's a skill and competency, that it's a specific function area of the organization. But again, I caution you to make sure, if that's part of your matching and pairing criteria, that you make sure that it is specific, or it could be a different part or a different location within an organization.
Thanks, Judy. And the next point on matching and pairing is really about addressing mentor-mentee mismatches once the match is already in place. The question is, what you think are the best practices in rematching mentors and mentees, or addressing those mismatches? If one relationship isn't working for some reason, how do we suggest that the organization proceed?
Well, the first thing I'd say is you take care of it as quickly as you possibly can. One of the things that we suggest is that you have certain evaluations that you run throughout your mentoring program. And there needs to be, you need to do those in certain time elements. You don't want to just let mentor-mentee partnerships kick off and then drop them. They need guidance. They need help. They support. And especially in the early phases. We suggest that you have a survey, and we can help you with those questions. But we suggest that you send out a survey somewhere around, I'd say 6 to 8 weeks after the mentoring partnership is kicked off, because you want to find out, are there any problems that have happened right away? Because usually if there's a really bad mismatch, you're probably going to find it in some of those very the first couple of meetings and the first couple of months of a mentor-mentee partnership. Now, that doesn't mean they won't happen on down the line. they're just more likely to happen in that first couple of months or the first couple of meetings the mentor and mentee have. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you find those things out, and you find them out right away. When we go through our readiness workshop, one of the things that we talk about that becomes important for an organization is to make sure there's a no-fault insurance policy that is built into your mentoring program. And basically what that means is you need to let everyone know from a communication process that if there is a mismatch, that they can come to the program administrator and talk about that. And the program administrator can, it could be a misperception on either the mentor or mentee part, or it could be that you've got a real mismatch in what you're doing. So the program administrator can make a different match if the mentor or the mentee decides that that's the thing to do. But again, both the mentor and the mentee in this partnership need to understand that, it's not anybody's fault. It was just a bad match for one reason or the other. It doesn't mean the mentor is right, the mentee is wrong, or the mentor is wrong and the mentee is right. It just was a mismatch. So making sure that, number one, you try to catch these as early as you can, and number two, identify why it was a mismatch and rematch those mentors and mentees as quickly as possible if they want to be rematched.
Thanks, Judy. One question about mentor-mentee meetings. How often do you actually recommend a mentor and mentee to meet? And is that the same sort of meeting times, or does that change over the life of the program?
Great question, and it's one that always comes up. I can't give you an absolute amount of time as a mentor and mentee. I can give you kind of a guideline. It really depends on the mentor and mentee. We find some mentoring partnerships where, based on what it is they want to learn, and this is what your criteria is, what is it that the mentee needs to learn and the mentor can be of assistance on. So it could be that they might meet every week. It could be they meet every other week. The rule of thumb that we really give to individuals is, especially in the early stages of the mentoring partnership, that if you can't meet at least 2 hours a month, whether that is an hour every other week or it's 2 hours at one time, whatever it is, or sometimes you might find that it is an hour one week and it's a half-hour phone call another. There's many different ways in which the mentoring partnership in which people can meet. But I would say that if you can't meet as a mentor or mentee at least 2 hours a month, there's going to probably be a problem. The mentoring partnership will probably kind of fade away. There'll always be other things that come in to take its place. The level of importance of the mentoring partnership dwindles. I would also say that, again, it's based on what it is the mentee needs to learn and what the goals are in the learning plan that the mentor and mentee put together. But usually you find that you may meet a little more often in the beginning, and that does begin to dwindle down. But even in those final stages of the mentoring partnership, you don't want to do it in such a manner that it's just kind of dropped. So again, even in the last days of the mentoring partnership, I would say that if you can't meet at least 2 hours a month, you're just liable to have a problem.
Thanks, Judy. Now that we're still on the topic of sort of mentoring program logistics, next question is, what is your recommendation with regards to the length of the program? I think this person has indicated that they've heard of a 9 to 12 month program as sort of the normal length. And then after that program, the question is, what happens with those mentees? Where do they go? What benefit do they derive from it?
I can tell you that of all the organizations that we've worked with, that 9 to 12 month partnership is a good time frame. And the reason for that is one of the historical misperceptions around mentoring, which sometimes prevents, you're always going to have more applications for mentees than mentors. And sometimes the reason that happens is because mentors have in the back of their mind, based on one of those historical misperceptions, the concept that if I get in this mentoring partnership as a mentor, all of a sudden this is going to be a lifetime commitment that I've got. So if you put a time period on it of 9 to 10 to 12 months over a year's time, everybody understands what that commitment is in doing that. And so, you know, it's a good time. In addition to that, that also gives everybody a goal on the types of things that they want to learn and about what the time frame is on it. So again, that 9 to 12 month period is a good time period. There are certain phases of a mentoring partnership, and the last two phases are basically called separation and redefinition. And what that means, and there's really a couple of different ways that that can take place, but to answer this question, separation means that the mentor and mentee are going to separate as formal mentor and mentee, but they're going to redefine a new relationship, such as peers, and you know, they're always going to keep in touch with each other. We hear all the time from individuals about the fact that they still keep in touch with mentors that they had 7, 8, 9 years ago. They still communicate with them and still have a good communication process and networking process with them. So that redefinition is that point in time when the mentor and mentee want to look back over what they've accomplished during that 9 to 12 month period, and then redefine, you know, we accomplished what we wanted to do, or there could be new things that they want to learn and they might stay together and do that, or they're going to separate formally from that partnership, but then go forward as colleagues and peers. What we have seen many times happen as to what happens to those mentees is normally one of three things. One is the organization then says to the mentee, okay, we gave you this opportunity. Now, it was mentee-driven. It is your job to go forward and now be in charge of your own development. The second thing that we see is going on is that the mentees become mentors themselves. And some of your most effective mentors are those individuals who have been a mentee because they understand what it felt like to be in the mentee's shoes. And the third way we have seen organizations handle this is they continue with mini workshops. They may be 1 or 2 hour lunch and learn sessions, but it keeps the mentee in that learning and development mode that they had when they were in the mentoring partnership. So those are the three main things that we see happen to mentees after the formal mentor and mentee partnership has dissolved or stopped.
Thank you, Judy. And this next question is about a specific type of program implementation. I'll read this out loud for you. Is it realistic, this person says, is it realistic to design and implement a broad-based mentoring program within a large global company crossing many geographies, languages, and cultural boundaries?
Absolutely. And we have done this many times before. We have, you know, we've worked with organizations, you know, as large as about 100,000 and throughout the world. And absolutely. What you're going to have is, again, implementing such a broad type of program. You definitely want to have a good strategic plan in doing this. You definitely want to have your business objectives overall identified, and you want to have your measurements identified. But what you're going to find is probably different divisions or maybe different parts of the country or the globe might have their own sub-goals, sub-business goals of the major overall business goal that's tied to the mentoring initiative. And there's things that they want to accomplish, but it still always needs to add back up to that original organizational goals. And they're going to have their own measurements, and that's fine. Your process that you're going to implement in your program is going to be the same. In addition to that, you're going to have some technology. You're going to have some technology to help you administer that. Goes back to the original poll that we had, and one of the issues being how to manage those large programs. You just can't do this without having technology to help you with the application process, the matching and pairing process, the reporting process, and the communication tools that need to be available between mentors and mentees. Because many times in those large organizational initiatives, the mentors and mentees may not be face-to-face all the time. So you want to make sure that you've provided them with the tools to be able to do that. But having a large global mentoring initiative is absolutely possible.
Thank you. And this next question, it goes back to the issue that I think many companies face, which is getting senior management buy-in or getting stakeholder buy-in for the mentoring program? I guess it's hard to maybe convince management that mentoring is really important and effective. So the question is, how do we best communicate the mentoring program in the company, first of all? That's the first question, and I'll let you answer that.
First thing you need to do is make sure that you've tied that to business initiative. If you tie your mentoring program to business initiative and you put together measurements for your program, that begins to make it a strategic initiative. That takes it out of that realm of being just a warm, fuzzy, feel-good program. And it makes it a very specific strategic business initiative. That's what's going to get you your buy-in. It's going to be positioning your mentoring as a part of your business focus and a part of your business plan, and not just letting it sit out there by itself. So if you can put a strategic plan together, you can position it around business objectives and show that you are very specifically tying this to certain measurements, that automatically will help you get senior management buy-in. And you said there was a second part to that question?
Yeah, well, I guess that, what you said does answer, all parts of the question. It really is, a specific question that we got from the audience is, what do you recommend if most top managers don't believe in mentoring? So do you have some sort of practical application as to how this communication can be rolled out?
Again, if you go through a good strategic planning process for your mentoring initiative, and I know I keep talking about this, but it really is the answer. It's that upfront planning piece. If you put all of those pieces together, it's going to automatically help lead you to what your communication program should be. One of the things that we talk about that ensures success of your mentoring initiative is make sure that you do have an organization-wide communication. Don't make this a secret program. Make sure that everybody knows that this is a program that is an organizational program. Now, it doesn't mean that as you roll it out that everybody, that you're going to take on 400 different mentor-mentee partnerships at one time. You can roll this out in phases and in what you're doing. But if you roll it out and you're doing all this and you say, we're going to roll it out and this is phase one, and maybe at that point in time you only have 75 or 100 or as few as 20 different partnerships. If you say we're rolling this out in phase one, that leads people to believe there's going to be a phase two. So it's something that's going to be ongoing. But we do believe you need to communicate that to everyone. But again, going back to the original, how do you do that? If you go through a good plan, you've tied it to business initiatives, you put your measurements together, you've gone through and you've looked at all the possible challenges, and you know what it takes to implement a successful program, it's going to be real easy to come up with your communication piece.
Thanks, Judy. And the last question really actually focuses directly on our technology. One member of the audience has asked, what is the investment required in the Insala online mentoring software system? And Judy, do you have any comments on that?
One of the things that we talk about is if your organization has somewhere around 50 pairs or 100 participants, that's a pretty good guideline that you are probably going to want some technology. And that's really the kind of guideline that we give to our clients, which actually came from some work that was done by Forrester in a study they did in 2010 around enterprise mentoring technology. They talked with vendors and they talked with organizations about technology, and this was kind of their benchmark also. So I would say that if you are looking at somewhere close to 50 pairs, around 100 participants, this is a good benchmark and a good guideline that you are probably going to have a good return on investment. It's probably a good worthwhile investment at that point in time to have the technology in place.
I see. And I guess with that same question, the issue is, it's perceived that investing in technology is really a big deal and will take a lot of effort and finances. What are the exact returns on investment that, let's say, an organization can expect after they have extended the program to, let's say, 100 members or 50 pairs? What benefits can the technology really bring to them?
Well, one of the first things that's going to happen, especially if you've been doing this, and we hear this all the time from your administrators that have been doing this on a spreadsheet basis, is you immediately are going to be able to reduce the number of hours your administrators spend in matching people and in facilitating the program overall. So that's going to enable them to spend more hours on either other activities of their own job, or it's also going to allow them to add more individuals as part of the mentoring program. So again, going back to organizations that we've talked to that talk about the fact that it takes them weeks to be able to sit down and do the matching and pairing, and technology shows you how to take that to minutes in being able to do that. So that's one of the things that happens. Also, by improving your matching and pairing process through the applications and all of those kinds of tools, you're also going to ensure a higher quality mentor-mentee match. And you're also going to be able to align that with the program goals in being able to do that. So, again, if you've got that type of matching and pairing, it's a higher quality matching and pairing that's going on. You're going to have a better engagement from your mentors and mentees. You're going to have a better reputation. You're going to bring in more individuals that want to participate. And we all know that employee engagement is a big issue. For engagement can help you in your turnover costs and all of the costs. Those are prime. Plus, you're also going to be able to generate reports right away. Someone needs a report, and you're going to be able to get it to them versus having to go through Excel spreadsheets or accumulate data from 4 or 5 different places to get that answer for them. So saving time and getting those reports, that's going to absolutely speed things up and definitely be a return on investment.
Thank you, Judy. And that just about wraps up our webinar and our time. And I just want to thank all of you for joining us today and taking the time to do so. And Judy, do you have any last comments before we step off the webinar?
No, I just want to thank everyone for attending. If you have any questions that we weren't able to cover during this 30-minute questioning process, we will make sure that we get those back to you. And we do want you to go to our website. We do want you to be able to especially look at our mentoring website that we have and that we offer. If you have any questions at all outside of the webinar, be sure and contact us. And again, before you leave our webinar today, we hope that you'll fill out our survey so that we can send you the results of that mentoring survey that we did in 2010.
All right, thank you all, and have a great rest of the day.